same offer privately, but it was rejected by Baxalta. Baxalta shares today up 12%. Oil industry insiders reporting a $2.5 million barrel drawdown of crude last week. That may push beaten down oil prices a little higher tomorrow. Today, oil up 57 cents, but still below $46 a barrel. And Atlanta Federal Reserve Bank President Dennis Lockhart says the U.S. economy is ready for the first hike in interest rates in 9 years. I'm Tom Busby, CNBC.
Overturned truck blocking the carpool lane, freeway construction slowing everything down. I travel for work. News like that used to ruin my whole day until I discovered Citrix GoToMeeting. With GoToMeeting, I can meet from anywhere using my computer, tablet, or smartphone. And with HD video, I simply turn on my webcam and it's like being in the same room, which means I can stay productive no matter how bad the traffic gets.
Visit GoToMeeting.com and start our free 30-day trial. That's GoToMeeting.com.
Have you had trouble with online dating? This is eHarmony founder Dr. Neil Clark Warren. We've created a new solution, EH Plus. EH Plus combines the personal attention of a matchmaker with eHarmony's extensive pool of great singles. EH Plus gives you hand-selected matches and freedom from being online. Get started today. Call 855-930-LOVE. That's 855-930-LOVE.
Consider this your invitation to sell. At buysellmakeoffer.com, you can sell as much as you want for the next 60 days without paying any fees whatsoever. Sound incredible? It is, and it's true. Buysellmakeoffer.com is the new exciting way to sell your stuff online. Make extra money right now. Sell your old car, furniture, video games, household items, clothes, even your home. Sell anything that's legal. Load up your stuff to sell right now at buysellmakeoffer.com. This is your official invitation to get on board to sell your stuff right now. Free for the next 60 days. And once you see how easy it is, you'll want to sign up for more because there are no item fees. That's right. Take this opportunity to move items from the other guys and sell it for free. You might even win a Samsung tablet, Amazon gift cards, and other cool prizes. BuySellMakeOffer.com is the future of online selling. You can use Skype to talk to your buyer or seller. Plus, you can use video to showcase your items. BuySellMakeOffer.com. Art Bell is back, and he's coming to KCAA.
There are a lot of people who think that we are Martians, that there's a strong possibility that we are Martians. That's why I said us. No, I'm serious. There was a civilization on Mars. That might have been us or our ancestors.
Nobody is more captivating than Art Bell.
Now, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, there is something here that defies logical explanation.
Tune into the best. Midnight in the Desert with Art Bell.
The only way you're going to get the American people to pony up the billions of dollars, however many hundreds of billions it would be to go to Mars, the only way you're going to get them to do that is to convince them that we have a real reason to go. Want to take a ride?
Weeknights at 9 p.m. on KCAA, 1050 a.m.
From the KCAA Weather Center, I'm Tom Ladd. For this afternoon, it'll be sunny with a high near 96, a south wind at 5 to 15, becoming west. Winds could gust as high as 20 miles per hour. Mostly clear tonight with a low around 68, a west wind at 5 to 15, becoming south after midnight, and gusting as high as 20 miles per hour. For Wednesday, sunny, high near 97, Wednesday night clear with a low around 68. That's your weather forecast for this hour from the station that leaves no listener behind, NBC News Radio, AM 1050, KCAA.
KCAA, where every day is a great day. KCAA, Loma Linda.
Welcome to Relationships 2.0. I'm Michelle Skeen. My special guest today is Alan Fox. He is back for the third time with his third book, People, Tools for Love and Relationships, The Journey from Me to Us. Alan, always a pleasure to chat with you.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm Thank you for inviting me back.
You did another great job on this book as well. You're on a roll.
Well, thank you. I really want to help as many people as possible, and I think that People Tools are doing that.
Yeah, I share your desire. And I'm just always so entertained by your stories. And I think that it really brings all of your points home when you share these parts of yourselves and your experiences. I love the way you started this book with the introduction and the important point about, what happens when we stay stuck and allow fear to prevent us from trying new things or acting in a different way. Would you mind sharing the story that you tell in the introduction?
Sure. Is that the one for my
That's
daughter
the shackle.
or for me?
No, that's the shackle for the story about
Right.
About
Well,
Shackleton. Yeah.
Yes. It was very interesting, Michelle. I was on actually a ship in Antarctica, and I read Shackleton's book Endurance, and he had an expedition in the early 1900s to the South Pole, and his boat got trapped and it sank. And Shackleton saved his entire crew, and at the end, he and two of his other men were on an island, and they had to cross the island to get to the only town, a small mining town on the other side, and they had to cross a mountain about 12,000 feet tall. And they weren't equipped for that. All they had was some rope and some wood. And when they got to the top, they were trapped. And Shackleton says, "Well, let's make a sled out of the rope and the wood and sled down." And one of his crew members said, "Well, suppose we go over a cliff, we'll die." And Shackleton says, "Well, we're going to die if we stay here. We're not dressed for this kind of cold. We can't walk down. We don't have time. So let's just go for it." And they did. And the interesting part, Michelle, is that when they walked into town, and they'd been out at sea for almost a year, and the manager of the mining town knew Shackleton but didn't recognize him, and here these three kind of skeletons walk into town. And the point of it is, though, that he just, by sheer force of will, saved himself and everybody else. And, I just think my first chapter in People Tools for Love and Relationships talks about the fact that you have to be the right person, and it's up to you. What happens in your life is up to you, and you can make good things happen.
Yeah. And sometimes, a lot of times it's about getting out of your comfort zone and doing something new that you haven't done before. And it's so interesting, you bring up the point about so often, especially when it comes to intimate relationships, that there's a lot of fear, and it's amazing how often we see people who say that they really want to be in a loving relationship, but kind of act as if they don't. So they are really protecting themselves, or they're not very open. So, yeah, you talk about, in chapter 1, the key is you. Explain that. And how that is just like the opener to this whole book on how to have better relationships, or how to get that relationship you want, or keep the one you have.
Absolutely. And, I find in my life that the more risk I take, and I'm talking about reasonable risks, but the more risk I take, the more I'm rewarded. And in an intimate relationship, there's always a risk that you're going to lose. And when I was a teenager, I wanted to get a girl to love me, and I read books and magazines and did research, and I finally found one quote in one book which said, "If you want someone to love you, love them first." And what that says to me is, someone has to take a risk. And I decided
someone has to be the one that kind of shows their hand first, right?
Exactly. And you're taking a risk. the other person could laugh at you or say, well, that's not what I had in mind at all, and you're rejected. But if you don't ask, I mean, I remember as a teenager going to dances, and I was very shy, and I didn't ask girls to dance. And just about when I was ready, they were walking out the door with somebody else. So, and it's strange because you don't have anything to lose anyway if you don't have a relationship.
Right.
So if you go first, well, you might win.
Right.
And also I try to make the point.
And often
Michelle,
I think people. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alan.
No, I try to make the point that in life in general, you can take the attitude that things just happen to me and I have no control over it, or you can take the approach that I do have not complete control, of course, but what I do can have a very positive impact in my life, and that's why I think the key to a relationship is you.
Yeah, and opening yourself up to the relationship. It's one thing to say you want to be in one. It's another thing to be open to that and to be open to other people, right?
Absolutely. And then when you do have a relationship, as I point out in People Tools for Love and Relationships, when you do, then you have something to lose. And so often we become more conservative and don't reveal things that we are afraid might offend our partner because we don't want to lose the relationship. And we stop doing what we did to get the relationship, meaning, take a little risk.
Yeah. One of the things I see with a lot of clients who want to be in a relationship is that they tend to force a conclusion too quickly. You talk about this in your book as well, that it's only been a couple dates, and well, can we be monogamous? Can we, can this be, can we only date each other? It's kind of premature for where they're at in the getting to know you stage. I think you mentioned in the book about, a guy sending, flowers before the date even happens. That seems a little, what's the message that he's sending?
Exactly. Yeah, I knew a man who would send a beautiful bouquet of roses before the first date. And to me, that says I'm insecure. I don't think you like me. I have to give you stuff in order to get you to like me. And to me, that kind of puts a woman off.
Yeah. So it's about kind of like staying in the moment and appreciating the time with that person while it's happening, rather than getting too carried away with the future or trying to do things that are going to make you feel more secure.
Exactly. And, when I was dating, I always made it a point. My objective for the evening was to have a good time, to enjoy myself and have the person I was with enjoy herself, and not to, am I going to marry this person or what's going to happen, but just focus on tonight, focus on the date, and just have a good time, and then see what happens after that.
Right. You talk in the book about how to be the right person. I really like that a lot. You have a list of things that you think that you need in order to build relationships that last, that it's more about being the right person rather than finding the right person. Explain that.
Absolutely. Michelle,
because everyone's on this, the search for finding the perfect person, right?
Exactly. And there is no perfect person out there, and there are lots of people you could be perfectly happy with. And the trick is not finding the right person. And I made this mistake. I was married twice, and when it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, I thought, well, I just picked the wrong person. All I have to do is pick the right person. And that's really not the case. You have to be the right person. And by that I mean primarily you should be authentic and be your real self. Yeah. Sometimes you meet someone and you engage in what I think it was courtship behavior. Oh, you like golf? Yeah, I'd love to play golf. Oh, it's one of my favorite things. And you don't like golf. My wife knew a woman who, the day she was married, after the minister said, now pronounce you man and wife, she said to her new husband, now I don't have to go out on your darn boat anymore. And she pretended to like doing that.
Right.
Well, you can imagine that marriage didn't last too long. So by being the right person, be a person who is real and who speaks your mind and tells people in a polite way what you want, what you like, what you don't like. And that way you'll find a relationship which will endure.
Right. Well, one of the other tools you have in the book is about identifying core values and making sure that those kind of line up with the person you're with as well, right?
Absolutely. And this is something you have to think about. What are your core values? And by core values, I'm talking about those values which you will not change. For example, some people do not want to have children. Now, if my core value is to not have children, and a woman's core value is to have a family, and both of us aren't going to change, then we shouldn't be together. So you really have to find out what your partner's core values are and what your core values are, and especially talk about those values which may be different.
Yeah, I mean, you have examples in the book, your lady friend who, dates these guys, and in the very beginning has a thing that she doesn't like about him, like he's a smoker. And then she stays with him, and she doesn't like smoking, and then stays with him. And then 2 years later, she's breaking up with him because he's a smoker. That's still her problem with him, right?
Yes. And I've seen many relationships, you probably have too, where they break up over something which was there and obvious in the first place.
Yeah. Why do you think that happens? Do you think it's because there is just such a strong desire to be coupled, to be partnered, that people just want to overlook that because they would rather tolerate that for a period of time rather than being alone? What is, have you ever talked to your friend about it? Like, why do you think you stuck with him when it's that same thing is what, ended the relationship?
Well, to me, and I do talk about this a fair amount in People Tools for Love and Relationships, and I talk about myself. When I started dating, I was very insecure with women, and both of my first wives, I went out on a date with them, and then they asked me out, and that indicated that they were interested in me. And I was so relieved that I overlooked just about anything else because
they
my
liked
goodness,
you.
here's a woman who liked me, and I better grab her. And after 2 marriages didn't work out, I decided I better change that. And with my present wife, I pursued her over some of her objections, and it worked out much better. I think insecurity is a big problem.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it really has people accept a lot of things that they wouldn't if they felt better about themselves. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, so much more to talk about with Alan Fox. The book is People Tools for Love and Relationships. I'm staring at People Tools for Business that he's written, and People Tools, and I'm sure he's working on number 4 if he hasn't already finished it. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. You're listening to Relationships 2.0.
Do you panic when you don't receive an immediate response to a text, email, or voicemail? Do you become clingy or demanding when you feel someone pulling away? Do you stay in unhealthy relationships because it's better than being alone? Or do you avoid relationships altogether? If you answer yes to any of these questions, you may struggle with fear of abandonment. This fear can trigger intense feelings of jealousy and anxiety that result in unhelpful behaviors that ultimately sabotage your relationships. Psychologist Michelle Skeen's powerful book, Love Me, Don't Leave Me, will help you develop a new perspective about yourself and others, and you will learn to recognize and change the behaviors that are hurting your relationships. You deserve to have closer, loving, and lasting connections. To find out how, go to www.michelleskeen.com. That's www.michelleskeen.com.
When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, both of my daughters were pregnant, and everything I was looking forward to turned into everything I was going to miss. First words, first steps. Today, those babies are 3. I'm with them all the time. I don't know what's next, but I know I'm here today.
A Susan G. Komen grant helped pay for Alanthia's surgery, and today she's caring for her grandchildren. Help save lives. Visit IamSusanGKomen.org. A public service message from Susan G. Komen.
You're invited to join Michelle Skeen, psychologist, author, and host of Relationships 2.0 on this station. On Michelle's radio show, she has guests who present their unique perspective and expertise on topics that cover all aspects of relationships. If you want to improve your relationships, and let's face it, we all have room for improvement, tune in to Relationships 2.0 with Dr. Michelle Skeen. If you miss Michelle's show, or if you're interested in listening to past podcasts, you can go to her website at www.michelleskeen.com. That's www.michelleskeen.com. So listen to Michelle's podcast or keep listening right where you're at. Relationships 2.0. Tune in and improve your relationships.
Welcome back to Relationships 2.0. I'm chatting with Alan Fox, author of People Tools, for lots of things, but today we're talking to him about love and relationships. Alan, tell everyone how they can find you.
Well, you can find me at peopletoolsbook.com. That's peopletoolsbook.com. And I do a weekly blog, so you can get some really good ideas and interesting observations on the world, and also, find out about me and find out about the 3 People Tools books that I've written.
Yeah, and you're working on another one now?
Actually, I am. I'm working on one for parenting. I think that's super important.
You have a lot of kids. You have 6, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. You have lots of, one of the things I want to say about you is that you share these parts of yourselves, and part of, your, what makes your book so powerful to me is that you share your mistakes. Like, you've figured out the right way to do things, but I think oftentimes there's so much shame about admitting that we've made mistakes, or, we have so many regrets and we'd rather just forget about them, when really, all of the learning and the growth happens when we make mistakes. And you share those. And I think that all of your readers really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I think we all learn more by our mistakes. I certainly do than by our successes. And also, in terms of being afraid to make a mistake, I do have a chapter saying the best defense is no defense.
Yeah, talk about that. I love that, because I was just in a situation where someone was really defensive, and it really, really shuts down the conversation.
Absolutely. And I think that in any relationship, whether it's an intimate relationship or a friend, I think that communication is very, very important. And if you feel you have to hide your mistakes, well, that limits. And as you say, if someone is defensive, if my wife is defensive and argues with me, that's very discouraging, and I feel unheard, and I feel that she's not going to change. And I read a book years ago called "Do I Have to Give Up Me to Be Loved by You?" And actually, it was written by a couple, and the woman and I happened to go to elementary school together. We knew
Yeah,
each
I
other in the
didn't
third grade.
recognize the authors or that book. I was wondering about that.
Yes, and what their central thesis in that book is that when your partner has a complaint, you can either have an intent to defend. In other words, say, no, I didn't do that, or yeah, I did it, but it's okay, or well, maybe I did that, but you do things that are far worse.
Right. That's a classic, right?
Yeah, or you can have an intent to learn and say, okay, tell me more about it, and really hear them out. And at worst, they're going to feel heard. You don't necessarily have to change anything or do anything, but you have to listen and allow your partner to feel that you are hearing them, that you're paying attention.
Yeah. I mean, and you say it, the idea of just being curious about what the other person's experience is, right? Rather than trying to invalidate their experience or discredit them.
Exactly. Absolutely. And I think part of a relationship is being supportive and encouraging and learning as much as you can about the other person. That's really part of the delight of a relationship, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of long-term relationships, I wanted to get back to your chapter on pace yourself when we were talking about, your friend sending the roses and kind of highlighting his insecurity. Is one of the important points of that chapter was you talk about, well, why don't you explain it? Why it's important? I mean, of course, it matters what kind of relationship you want, and you break it down. Is this a one-night stand, or are you looking for a long-term relationship? And if you're looking for a long-term relationship, it's obviously really important to pace yourself. Say more about that. And I love the example about the Boulder, Colorado running coach.
Yes, I read that in a very very fine book, and it talked about the new coach of the cross country team at Boulder, Colorado High School, and their motto was, "We run best at the end." So, in other words, the coach said, "I don't care if you finish first, third, or 10th, but it's a 3-mile race, and I want you to improve your standing in the last mile. So if you start the last mile in 7th and you finish the race in 5th, then you've improved." And you have to pace yourself. I tell the story about a friend of mine in high school who ran the mile, and he usually ran the mile in about 5 minutes, 10 seconds, 5:20. And he said any good high school miler can run in a mile in 5 minutes. So he set out on his last race of the season really, really fast. And he was way ahead for 3 laps out of 4, and then he just died, and he came in about 6.5 minutes. So if you go out too fast in a relationship, it's not a pace that you can sustain.
Right.
So, take it easy and relax and enjoy who you're with and enjoy whatever you're doing at the time. And, if it's fun for both of you, then you'll probably do it again.
Well, and one of the things I love is you're saying, if you're in a long-term relationship, you want like some of your final years together to be really lovely too. Like you want to save some of your energy, right? So you're not at the end like, oh, this is awful, right?
Absolutely. I think one of the real joys of a long-term relationship is, getting older together, knowing each other. One of the things I enjoy most every day is getting home and talking to my wife and maybe watching some TV together and sharing our days. It's really, we've known each other, been married for almost 35 years, and it's very pleasant, very secure, and I really like that part of our relationship.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have a nice little formula figured out that you share in the book that's really lovely. Talk about I love happiness equals expectations minus reality. I think one of the problems with romantic relationships in general, although, I see it with people in other relationships as well, but that expectations are high, and people set them and then they're constantly in a state of disappointment. And we know that it sucks to be disappointed. It just does. Nothing feels good about when someone lets you down. So how do you not set yourself up for failure, or the relationship up for failure?
Well, I think, Michelle, that's a key point in a relationship. And when your expectations are very high, you are setting yourself up for disappointment. For example, we all have off days. So I can't expect my wife to be as good all of the time as she is some of the time. Mm-hmm. So if I have an expectation that she's going to do her best, and sometimes that's going to be great, and maybe a few days a year or a few days a month it's not going to be too good, that's okay. My expectations, it's like a salary. If you expect a $10,000 raise and you only get $7,000, you're going to be disappointed. If you expect $5,000 and get $6,000, you're going to be happy. So
right.
when you set your expectations realistically, or perhaps a little bit less than realistically, you're going to enjoy what you get more of the time, and especially in a long-term relationship. I think we all want someone to save us and take all the problems of life away, and that's just not going to happen. So don't expect everything out of your life partner.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that that's still this idea that the one is going to be like this perfect match where you love to do everything together and you spend all your time together, and they're your best friend and your lover and and the list goes on. I wonder what the percentage of relationships like that is, like how many people actually like truly have that? Is that a realistic expectation?
Well, I knew I grew up with a totally unrealistic expectation that you're going to fall in love, get married, and live happily ever after every day of my life. And it didn't work out that way. And when my first marriage, I blamed my wife. Well, you know something? It's important to take responsibility and to make good things happen. And nobody is perfect. I have a chapter in People Tools for Love and Relationship called My Many and Only, in which I say that there are thousands of people that any one of us could be perfectly happy with. And I don't know if my wife is number one on that list or number 5,000. I do know that, I can't try out that many people. So I think you have to select and then make it work. And that does take communication skills, and it takes a dedication to being in the relationship.
Yeah. You mentioned in that chapter that maybe Julia Roberts is on that list of perfect people for you. And then today I was at the grocery store, and on the cover of a tabloid, it said Julia Roberts is getting divorced. So
well,
you should tell, is it Devine, your wife?
Yes, Devine, yes.
You should tell her that, one of your girls, it might be becoming available,
Right. Well, don't we all tend to do that? Movie stars,
yeah, the fantasy, right?
Exactly, and it's a fantasy, and it's really a nice fantasy, but let's leave it where it belongs as a fantasy, because you have to live in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell your story about chapter 9. The truth is the long cut. This is really funny about your childhood and how this relates to relationships and love.
Absolutely. Well, as a child, I lied a lot, and I figured out when I was older as an adult why I lied, and that was because if my father would say, "Alan, did you break the window?" No, I didn't do that, and I got away with it maybe one time out of 5. But if I did anything wrong, I got punished. So in order to avoid punishment, I would lie. And 4 times out of 5, I was caught anyway. But 1 time out of 5, I got away with it. But in fact, one time, I have a story in the book where I was coming home from school. I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and there were some pumpkins in a vacant lot. And it was almost Halloween, so I just took a nice pumpkin, took it home. And my father, when I got home, said, "Where'd you get the pumpkin?" I said, "Well, it was in a vacant lot." He said, "Well, did you ask the people who owned the lot?" I said, "Of course." He said, "Fine, take me there."
Oh my gosh, awful.
I could see the handwriting on the wall, and we go to the house.
That was a death march.
Oh, I didn't even go to the door. My father knocked on the door. I sat on the sidewalk. My head was in my hands. And, the people were very nice. They said to my dad, "Well, your son can have the pumpkin. That's not a problem." Well, for my dad, the problem was I didn't ask. And he's absolutely right. And when I say, a lie is a shortcut. In other words, you might get a benefit now, immediately, but in the long run, it's going to absolutely ruin a relationship, because if your partner can't trust you, and if you can't trust your partner, that's a big, big problem. So I've learned to, take the hit now, come clean, and work it out and move on. And I prefer long-term relationships to getting something right now, but being hurt in the long run.
How do you feel about there's always a lot written about, and a lot of jokes about, husbands who get asked by their wives, how does this dress look on me? Does this make me look fat? How do you like my hair? Do you like, those kind of questions? And how do you think the little white lie is okay? Or do you think it's better to say, and maybe this ties into one of your other people tools about timing, but do you think it's better to say, I really liked your hair that other color, or, you don't look as thin in that dress as you did in the one you wore yesterday? I mean, do you say that stuff, or do you tell them what you think they might want to hear?
Well, there are 2 situations. One is just volunteering. And I seldom volunteer a comment about my wife's appearance unless it's a positive comment. Your hair really looks nice, or that dress looks especially good today. Now, if I'm asked, I'm truthful. Now, again, I don't have to be mean. I don't have to say, "That's the worst dress I've ever seen on anybody." I could say, "Well, it's not my taste. And, you have other things I really, really like a lot, and that's just not my taste." Actually, Michelle, on that, I am always truthful when asked the question. And in fact, my wife showed me a dress years ago, and I gave her a comment. And then 2 years later, she puts on the same dress, and she asked me what I thought. And I don't remember what I said, but I gave her a comment. She said, "You said the same thing 2 years ago." And I said, "Well,
so you're consistent." She knows you're telling the truth, because it's hard to remember the lies, right?
Exactly. When I went into business in my early 20s, I really thought about this and knew that I lied as a kid, and I don't have that good a memory. I can't remember what I told different people. So I decided, in business particularly, I'm just going to tell everybody the truth. That way I don't have to remember, what I told you and what I told somebody else. It's just always the same.
Absolutely. We're going to take a short break, and we'll come back with Alan Fox, author of People Tools for Love and Relationships. You can find out more about Alan and all 3 of his books by going to peopletoolsbook.com. Stay tuned. We're going to chat some more.
Do you tend to overreact and let your emotions rule your interactions with others? Do you become defensive or find it difficult to see things from another's point of view? You're not alone. Despite the fact that we all have to deal with people in our daily lives, many of us have difficulties with interpersonal relationships. My suggestion? Pick up a copy of the Interpersonal Problems Workbook This workbook combines powerful evidence-based techniques for strengthening relationships in all areas of your life, whether it's at home or work, with a significant other, a parent, or your child. To find out more about the Interpersonal Problems Workbook, go to www.michelleskeen.com. That's www.michelleskeen.com. Pick up a copy and improve your relationships.
Hey, what's up? Thinking about you. XOXOXO. Want to snuggle. ... JK. Hit me back. You getting these texts? ? We should hang later. I miss you. Holla at ya, boy. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you at home? Where are you? What are you doing? OMG. You are making me mad. Are you with your ex? You better text me back. I'm waiting outside your house.
Relentless, aggressive texting is like sending an angry robot to deliver your message. When does the robot become dangerous? Let us know at that'snotcool.com.
That'snotcool.com.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
America's wounded warriors are coming home. After serving on foreign shores, these brave men and women are returning to their families and communities. Many have wounds you can see, and many have wounds you can't see, like post-traumatic stress disorder. Now that these warriors are back home, they are ready to enter the civilian workforce. To help, Wounded Warrior Project has developed the Warriors to Work program, a career counseling service that helps warriors translate their military experience to the civilian workplace. These extraordinary men and women bring proven world-class job skills and a unique perspective on teamwork to the job. And to ensure the right warrior finds the right job, Wounded Warrior Project works with employers to find just the right match. When you hire a wounded warrior, you hire an intelligent, talented, and committed new employee. Contact Wounded Warrior Project at findwwp.org. Welcome home the brave.
Welcome back to Relationships 2.0. I'm chatting with Alan Fox about his new book. Happy book release day, right? Was it today or yesterday?
Yes, Michelle, People Tools for Love and Relationships was published today.
Well, this is very exciting. I was so excited to get you on the first day out. The journey from me to us. One of the big hurdles for a lot of people is their inability to ask for what they want. And I think almost everyone who's come into my office has in some form or another basically said, I would just like people to be able to read my mind so I don't have to ask. It's really hard for me to ask. And everyone has kind of their own experiences about why it's difficult. But ultimately, as you say, we don't want to hear no. And, you talk about growing up and how your father was with, when you'd ask for stuff. Do you mind telling that story and then talk about how it's relevant in love and relationships?
Absolutely. Well, I think most of us really, really dislike rejection.
Yeah.
And when you ask for something, may I have to have this, you are risking a no, you're risking rejection. And in my family, as a kid, when I asked my father for things he didn't want to do, and, I was a kid, I asked for a lot of stuff, and he got so angry because he didn't like to say no. He didn't like to disappoint me, but he didn't want to do it. So he got so angry that I just decided I wasn't going to ask for stuff, and that carried over as an adult, and I was afraid to ask. In fact, I did the same thing my dad did. If my wife asked me for something I didn't want to do, I got angry with her for asking.
Yeah.
And it took me until I was about 30 years old to learn it's okay to ask. And when my children ask for something, or anybody else does for that matter, even if I am going to turn them down, I just make it a point to thank them for asking. It's okay to ask. It's okay to want things. And it's also okay to not do everything that somebody else wants me to do. And especially in a close relationship, you just have to ask for what you want and then work it out. And that's something I agree with you, Michelle. I think a lot of us learn as kids that it's not okay to ask. And then we get angry because we don't get what we want, and we never even ask. And then we kind of insist that our partner be a mind reader and know what we want before we even ask for it. And that's a losing proposition.
And that's another setup for disappointment, right?
Absolutely. You bet.
One of the other things that I think that, people that people don't learn from their childhood is that if they've never heard their parents say, I'm sorry, and often they don't because, generations past, I don't think parents ever apologize to their kids for anything, or at least I don't remember that. But I know I've apologized to my kids a lot. But so a lot of people don't know how to say they're sorry, and because they never learned it from their parents. And in my books, I always talk about the importance of an apology, but you're writing about it. I just absolutely love the way that you break it down because, like I was on the number, like I've talked about the number 2 before and how important, like number 5 is, but not all of these, kind of stepwise apologies. Do you mind going through that? Because I think this is really important for people to understand why these what apologies don't work and what apology does work.
Absolutely, Michelle. And, People Tools for Love and Relationships, I have a chapter, The 5 Kinds of I'm Sorry, which is what we're talking about. And I look at it as kind of, you see a little brush fire, and you could take a cup of water and put it out. And that's like saying, I'm sorry. On the other hand, if you don't, it can burn down an entire relationship. So the 5 kinds of I'm sorry, well, you can say, I'm sorry you chose to respond so badly to what I did. Well, that's kind of accusing them of being wrong. It's not really, I'm sorry at all. Now, the second one, which is a little bit better, is I'm sorry you're upset. And, that certainly has the ring of truth. But it doesn't say you're right. It just says, I'm sorry you're upset, even though you shouldn't be.
Yeah, because you're so sensitive.
Right. And the third one is I'm sorry I said that. And now that's getting better. That's taking some responsibility. And the fourth one is I'm sorry I hurt your feelings, which, is better yet. But the fifth and best kind of sorry is just I'm sorry. You don't have to hedge it. You don't have to explain it. Just say I'm sorry.
No qualifier
really
that kind of gets you off the hook. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not so horrible to make a mistake. I remember, when Johnny Carson was on the air, if his joke didn't work, he was even funnier when he was responding to the fact that nobody laughed. And if you make a mistake, if you upset your partner and you say, I'm sorry, your relationship will actually end up stronger than if it hadn't happened. So it's an opportunity. When your partner's upset with you, it's an opportunity for you to say, I'm sorry, and be closer for that experience.
There's so much power in admitting you're wrong. It's so much more power than saying that you're right, than trying to make someone see that you're right. Is just to say, I was wrong. And it's amazing how quickly that ends the conflict.
Exactly. It's over. And, I'm sure you know people, as I do, that always have to be right. We have friends, and they're always right about everything. And I don't think I don't feel there's any room for me. And if there's already a conflict, they always think they're right. And I find that kind of obnoxious, and I don't want to spend too much time with people like that.
Yeah. No, it's difficult to be around those people because if they're always right, it means at some point you're going to be wrong, even if you're not really wrong, right?
Exactly. And you can have a difference of opinion. You know,
sure.
You liked the movie, I didn't like it. Well, there's no right or wrong here. It's just a matter of preference.
Exactly. One of the things you talk about in the book, and, you know, I recall you talking about it in your other books too, is that you had a real issue with anger for a while. And I think that's true of a lot of people. And how do you talk about people tool 22 is anger is a lonely job. What does that mean?
Yes. Well, being angry is very isolating. And I told my wife when we moved in together 35 years ago, I said, you know, look, I sometimes get angry, and what I want to do is to make you feel bad. So if you come after me and try to support me and make me feel better, I'm just going to get angry and try to drag you down. So don't do that. And what I figured out is this. You know, if I'm angry, and I think everyone's had the experience, you know, if your partner is there, you stomp around the house and you act upset, and then they leave. Well, you don't act that way anymore because you were really putting on a show. And the problem is this. Being angry doesn't feel good. And if I'm the one who's angry, I want to get over it as soon as possible. And so I told my wife, I said, just tell me you'll be supportive and check in with me in 3 or 4 hours. And that's what we've done. And, you know, anger, I guess, can be satisfying if you feel that, you know, you're getting back at someone. But, boy, it's very lonely. It sets you apart. And another thing about anger, which I've written, you get angry because you're getting something you don't want or you're not getting something you do want from somebody else. And what you should do, and what works better, is just tell them, I really want this, and, you know, I'm not getting it, and talk about it. And but carrying around anger and just acting out and being obnoxious for long periods of time or even short periods of time doesn't do you much good. And
no, and it's harmful to relationships. I'm running groups right now for this protocol that I co-developed that's a treatment for depression, and a number of people in the group were saying, particularly guys, that when they're really angry because they're not happy with themselves, that when they see people who seem to be fine in life and are even happy, that they want to do something to change that. And so they tend to kind of lash out when they're angry rather than, you know, engaging in some kind of helpful coping behavior. And because I think it's that whole misery loves company. Like, if I'm suffering, I want you to know what it feels like. I want you to suffer too. And ultimately, that's not making anyone feel better.
Exactly. And I think that's very common. I think all of us do that from time to time. And we try to drag the other person down. Exactly. Right. And, you know, if I feel awful but you feel even worse, well, that makes me feel better. But that's not a very constructive way to do it. And if I do that to you, then you're more likely to do it to me next time you're angry. And so everything tends to unravel.
Yeah. Whole lot of repair work ends up needing to be done, right?
Yes.
What do you mean by appeal to their self-interest when you're talking about love and relationships? And how do we miss this? Like, what do we do that makes our requests or whatever not work?
Well, I think that in a relationship, we're on our best behavior when we first meet, and we know what kind of food the other person likes and what kind of entertainment they like. Maybe they like going to football games but not movies, and we try to do things which they will enjoy. I think later in a relationship, we kind of want to collect, and we're saying to ourselves, well, now it's my turn to get what I want. But the point of it is, if I want you to do something, I've got to appeal to your self-interest, not just because I want it. And so I've got to praise you. I've got to find out what will work for you. And if I want my wife to go to San Francisco, I'm going to point out all the advantages to her from going to San Francisco. I'm not going to say, hey, let's go to San Francisco and you can sit in a boring business meeting all day. That's not going to do the trick. So you always have to appeal to what the other person wants, and that is so important in life, because then you'll get more of you want, and the other person will get more of what they want. So it's a win-win.
Well, it sounds like that's that whole concept of perspective taking, which really enriches relationships, right? You're thinking about what the experience of the other person would be, and not just what it is for you. So it's actually really like it's really honest. It's kind of sounds like a little bit of a sales pitch, but it's an honest sales pitch.
Oh, absolutely. And, I think we have to sell ourselves to each other all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't say, boy, I was really nice to you 10 years ago, so you should still be living off that.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Well, we want to be, it's always great to present your best self, whatever that is now. It's not what you were when you were 40, but it's what you are now.
That's very true. But one of the things that's really nice to me about a long-term relationship is, you don't have to look your best. On Sunday, I can walk around the house in my bathrobe, and it's just so relaxing to be real and not have to worry about image with your partner.
Yeah. So are you the guy who stood at the altar and said, and after the ceremony was over, you said, oh, now I can gain 20 pounds?
Well, I never said that, but I will tell you, when I was single, I lost weight. And as soon as I get married, I started putting on weight. So that is definitely a tendency. One woman my wife knows got married, and right after the ceremony, the minister said, now declare you man and wife. She said, well, now I don't have to get in your darn boat anymore. And she pretended to like going out on the boat. She really didn't. So
I like the one where you said the guy, when he got married, said, now I get all the sex I want. And the woman said, now I don't ever have to do that again.
Yes, absolutely. And you got to talk about these things, but absolutely, we all make assumptions.
Well, I love your book so much, and for everyone listening, I just want to say, Alan, if you haven't already picked up on it, he reminds me of like your smartest, funniest uncle, the way that he tells these stories in here, and it's all so relatable and so immediately applicable. And I think that's really important too, is, there's deeper work that some people need to do, but these tools are things that you can do immediately that don't take any, excavation or groundwork. It's just right there. And it's not surprising that your books are so successful. And I can really feel your passion coming off the pages too. I feel like you're really having fun writing these books.
Well, that's very, very true, Michelle. I enjoy writing them. I really appreciate your reaction and having me on your show. And I hope a lot of people will buy People Tools books and be able to live their lives in a better way for everybody.
Well, you are a New York Times bestselling author, so these books have done incredibly well. By the way, we share a publisher now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Good.
I got a contract from Kenji, so I'm very excited.
Oh, wonderful.
So we don't just have Jane as a connection anymore. Anyway, thank you for coming on my show. The first day your book came out, and I look forward to having you back with your next book about parenting. I think that's going to be full of lots of lively stories.
Absolutely. I really appreciate your kind words and being on your show. It's just
so
a
again,
pleasure.
it's People Tools for Love and Relationships: The Journey from Me to Us by Alan Fox, and you can find this everywhere and go to his website, peopletoolsbook.com. Be well, Alan. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Michelle.
You're helping lots of people.
Well, thank you. And you are too. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. I'll be back next week.
This is KCAA Loma Linda, the station that leaves no listener behind. CNBC News is next, a courtesy of buysellmakeoffer.com, where you can post a video about items you have for sale. Sign up now. It's free.
Rise in U.S. factory orders in June, most of that on new commercial jets, and some solid earnings. Still, the Dow fell 47 points. The NASDAQ